Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're exploring something that's really got me thinking, the potential for AI to actually come up with brand new research ideas.
Oh, it's an amazing area, isn't it? Especially when you think about it. This isn't just AI like spitting out some text, you know?
Yeah,
It's about AI pushing the boundaries of human knowledge, potentially.
exactly. And the paper we're diving into is titled, Can LLMs Generate Novel Research Ideas? A large-scale human study with 100-plus NLP researchers.
Wow, that title alone,
I
right?
know. It grabs you, doesn't it? But let's break it down a bit. Over 100 NLP researchers, that's a lot of brain power focused on this.
It is. It really sets a new standard, I think, for this kind of research.
Okay, before we get too far ahead, how did this study actually work? What were they looking at specifically?
So they had these three conditions, right? One set of ideas was written just by humans. That's our baseline.
Makes sense.
Then a separate group of ideas was made by an AI.
Okay,
And finally, there was this kind of hybrid group where the AI generated ideas, but then a human expert came in and re-ranked them.
clever. That's a really neat setup.
Mhm.
But how they make sure it was a fair comparison when it came to judging these ideas?
Oh, that's key, right? So to avoid bias during the review process, they standardized how all the ideas were formatted and written. The reviewers, they had no idea if they were looking at a human idea or an AI one.
A true blind test for research.
Okay, I gotta know. Did the AI deliver? Did it come up with anything good?
All right, so this is where it gets really interesting.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
The AI-generated ideas, they were consistently judged as more novel than the ones humans came up with.
Wait, hold on. More novel? That's a bold statement.
It is, and it gets better. We're not talking a small difference either. This was statistically significant, p less than 0.05.
Whoa! AI outperforming humans on sheer novelty. This is sounding like a real turning point in how we view AI's role in research.
It really does raise some big questions.
Yeah, like where do we go from here? For sure, but it's worth noting, while AI did great on novelty, the human ideas often got higher marks for feasibility and effectiveness.
That makes sense to me. AI might have these wild, out-of-the-box ideas,
Yeah.
but humans are still better at figuring out what we can actually do,
Mhm.
at least for now.
It's a good point. It's like having a brainstorming session where someone throws out this crazy idea, which might be brilliant, but then you got to say, okay, how do we make this happen with what we have?
Haha, exactly. But that begs the question, did this study uncover any, I don't know, like limitations, challenges when it comes to these AI-generated ideas?
Definitely. One of the big ones was this issue of, well, kind of like idea duplication. When the AI had to come up with lots of ideas, it tended to repeat similar concepts, a lack of diversity.
So it's like that friend who always wants to go to the same restaurant even though you've been there a dozen times.
Perfect analogy. AI might break new ground, but then it falls into this creative rut. And that brings us to another challenge. How do we evaluate these research ideas?
Oh, right, because, an idea is only as good as its...
Goodness, right? Well, exactly. And what they found is that LLMs, they're not quite there yet when it comes to judging how good an idea actually is.
Really? So they can think them up, but not tell which ones are worth pursuing.
It's a hurdle, for sure. The agreement between AI and human reviewers was lower than when humans were just judging each other.
So it's like having an intern, right? Tons of ideas, raw potential, but you need the experienced folks to say, okay, this is the one we run with.
Exactly. And speaking of those ideas, our listeners are probably itching to hear some examples. Why don't we dive into a few of the actual research idea titles?
I was just thinking that. Always love a good example to bring it all home.
All right, so one that stood out was modular calibration for long-form answers, which got a pretty decent score, a 6 overall.
Okay, that's pretty good, I guess. So what's it all about? Break it down for us.
Sure. It's all about improving AI's confidence when it's generating longer pieces of text, like, essays or even code.
So it's got to make sure it's not just throwing words together, but it actually believes in what it's saying.
Right. Exactly. A built-in gut check, if you will. And then there's another one, semantic resonance uncertainty quantification. Got a 6 as well.
Uncertainty. Why are we even bothering with that? Isn't the whole point of AI to give us, solid answers?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. Instead of thinking of AI as this all-knowing oracle, we have to recognize that, just like us, it can be unsure about things.
Right. I guess so.
And if it can express that uncertainty, well, that makes it a more reliable tool, more trustworthy for research.
It's like the difference between someone saying, I'm 100% certain about this versus, here's what I think, but I could be wrong. That second one, I instantly trust their judgment more.
Exactly. And now, for one that really got the reviewers talking, Translation with LLMs through prompting with long-form context, one reviewer gave it a 3, not novel enough, they said, but another gave it an 8 for novelty.
Whoa, that's a big difference. What was so controversial about it?
It's all about using longer pieces of text as context when you're asking the LLM to translate. Maybe the first reviewer felt like that's already being done, while the second saw it as, I don't know, like a new twist or application.
It just goes to show, right? Even among experts, what's considered novel is kind of up for grabs. It's subjective.
It is. And this whole area of AI-generated research, it's early days, Lots to explore, lots to debate, lots to discover.
This has been really eye-opening so far. So we've got AI with the potential to create new research ideas, but it's got its limitations too. It sounds like, what, a partnership in the making?
I think that's a great way to put it. This study isn't about AI replacing human researchers, but figuring out how we can work together, using our different strengths to, advance knowledge.
Okay, but before we get too carried away dreaming about the future, how about we dig into the nitty-gritty of the study itself? Like, what AI were they using? How was it coming up with these ideas?
Excellent point. Always got to get into the details. Get ready, folks, because this is where it gets even more fascinating.
Bring it on. I'm ready to geek out a bit. How about you? So, how did they even get an AI to generate research ideas in the first place?
So the AI they used, it was pretty powerful, combining a few cutting-edge techniques. We're talking retrieval augmentation, overgeneration, and then re-ranking.
Wait, hold up. Let's unpack those one at a time. What's retrieval augmentation?
Imagine, right, you're staring at a blank page, need a new research idea. What's your first instinct?
Research, of course. Read papers, see what's already out there, maybe talk to some colleagues.
Bingo! That's retrieval augmentation for the AI. They gave it access to a ton of research papers, all sorts of relevant information, like its own personal library.
So it's not just pulling ideas out of thin air.
Nope, it's building on what's already known, like any good researcher.
Okay, makes sense. And overgeneration, what's that all about?
This is where things get a little, well, excessive.
Uh-huh. All right, I'm intrigued. Go on.
Instead of just a few ideas, they had the AI generate tons of ideas. Hundreds, maybe even thousands, like brainstorming on steroids.
Whoa, quantity over quality. What's the thinking there?
The logic is, the more ideas you have, even if they're kind of crazy, the better chance you have of hitting on something truly groundbreaking, right? Like panning for gold, sifting through the dirt to find the good stuff.
Okay, but sifting through thousands of AI ideas, that sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, it would be. But that's where re-ranking comes in. The AI was also trained to rank its own ideas based on things like novelty, feasibility, that kind of stuff.
So the AI is its own editor.
Exactly. It picks the top contenders, the most promising ones, and those are what go to the human researchers for further evaluation.
That makes a lot more sense. Streamlines the whole thing.
Right. Makes for a smoother collaboration between us humans and the AI.
This is fascinating stuff. Sounds like they really put a lot of thought into this study. But you know how it is with research? Sometimes things don't go exactly according to plan. Were there any hiccups? Any unexpected challenges along the way?
Actually, yeah. Despite all their careful planning and fancy techniques, the AI agent, well, it ran into some creative challenges.
Ooh, I do love a good research mishap. Tell me everything.
Oh.
I do love a good research mishap. Tell me everything.
Well, you know how we talked about the AI duplicating ideas? Turns out it was worse than they thought.
Oh no, so like it was plagiarizing itself? That's got to be embarrassing.
Not on purpose, of course. But they found that as the AI made more and more ideas, the number of truly unique ones actually went down. It's like it had a limited set of concepts and just kept, remixing them.
So a one-trick pony. A creative flash in the pan, as they say.
Kinda, yeah. It shows the limits of where we are with LLMs, right? Great at patterns, at putting things together, but true originality. Not quite there yet.
That makes sense. It's like those AI images that were everywhere a while back, looked amazing at first, but then you're like, oh, they're all kind of the same.
Exactly. And this impacts the re-ranking too. Remember how the AI was sorting its own ideas? Well, turns out it wasn't always so good at judging its own work.
Though the irony. Too smart for its own good, eh?
Not quite hubris, more like a lack of self-awareness, I guess. There was this big difference between what the AI I thought were the top ideas and what the human experts picked.
So basically picking favorites based on the wrong criteria.
Kinda, yeah. And that's why humans are still so important in research, at least for now. That gut feeling for a good idea, the AI hasn't quite mastered that.
It's like this study was as much about what AI can't do as what it can do.
Totally agree. Gives us a realistic picture, right? Not a threat, but a potential partner, but one with, some quirks.
So Big question then. What does this mean for the future? If AI can generate these ideas, but it's got these limits, where do we go from here?
$1 million question. The researchers, they talk about needing better ways to evaluate ideas, AI that understands human values more, and new ways for humans and AI to work together, play to each other's strengths.
Sounds like we're on the edge of something big, a whole new era in research.
It's exciting, but we got to be thoughtful about it for sure.
I hear you. Okay, so you've spent a lot of time with this research. What really jumped out at you? What's the one thing our listeners should take away from this whole deep dive?
For me, it's the idea that AI can actually make humans more creative. Not replacing us, but giving us new tools, new ways to think about problems. That's huge.
I love that. It's inspiring, right?
Yeah.
We've only just scratched the surface of what AI can do in research. Who knows what's next?
It's an amazing time to be in this field, that's for sure.
It is. But for now, that's the end of this deep dive.
Yeah.
Huge thanks to our expert for all their insights.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about all the details of this research, check out the full paper. We'll link it in the show notes.
Definitely worth a read.
Until next time, stay curious, everyone, and keep exploring. Wow, what a journey this has been, huh? Really makes you think about the future of research.
Doesn't it? It's mind-blowing.
It is. As we wrap this up, I'm curious, what really stood out to you? What's the one big takeaway you'd want our listeners to ponder?
For me, it's how this study changes the whole conversation about AI in research. It's not about replacing us, it's about this partnership, where each side helps the other be even better.
I love that. It's about working together, not against each other.
Exactly. AI can handle the massive data coming up with those initial sparks. Then humans, we take over, use our critical thinking to refine, evaluate,
AI expands what's possible, but human ingenuity, that's what guides us.
That's it. That's the synergy.
And the study really highlights how important that human touch is, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we saw how AI can get stuck in a rut, repeating itself, lacking that originality.
It's true. And that's where we excel, spotting the truly groundbreaking stuff.
It's like they say, necessity is the mother of invention. Maybe those limitations we talked about, they can actually make us even more creative.
Interesting point. Constraints can force us to think differently, try new things.
It's like, imagine a sculptor working with a really tough piece of marble.
I'm listening.
The limits of that material, they might push them to create something truly unique,
That's a great analogy. And in a way, that's what's happening now with AI and research. We're learning the boundaries, but also how to push past them.
It's an amazing time to be a researcher, no doubt.
It really is. This study has opened up so many possibilities. Thinking of AI as this creative partner, it's exciting.
It is. But like any partnership, got to have understanding, communication, willingness to adapt.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I think our listeners are ready for that challenge, ready to keep exploring this fascinating world where AI and research meet.
I hope so.
Before we go, a huge thank you to our expert for sharing all this with us.
It's been a pleasure, truly.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If you want all the details, check out the full research paper. We'll link it in the show notes.
It's a must-read.
Until next time, stay curious, everyone, and never stop exploring. All right, ready to dive into something pretty wild. We're talking AI generating those aha research ideas, and not just anywhere, but specifically in NLP research.
It's really interesting stuff because this study they did, can LLMs generate novel research ideas? A large-scale human study with 100+ NLP researchers actually put this whole thing to the test.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, they had expert NLP researchers going head-to-head with an AI agent, just generating ideas. And then, get this, over 79 expert reviewers went in and assessed all these ideas blindly.
Talk about a comprehensive approach. So they brought in over 100 NLP researchers and made them compete against AI. How'd they even set that up?
Well, they had these 3 conditions. One were the humans generated ideas. That was just called human ideas.
Straightforward enough.
Then AI ideas, where the AI agent was the idea machine. And lastly, AI ideas plus human re-rank.
Okay, so in that last one, they let the AI go wild and then had humans kind of cherry pick the best.
Exactly. And to make it super fair, they standardized how all the ideas were written so there wasn't any bias during the review.
That's a smart move, for sure. Levels the playing field. But I'm still stuck on how you even begin to teach an AI to generate research ideas.
That's where it gets really cool. This AI they used worked with something called retrieval augmentation.
Retrieval augmentation.
Basically, it means the AI could tap into external knowledge sources, like existing research papers and stuff.
Ah, so it wasn't working in a vacuum. It had a knowledge base to build upon.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that just lead to the AI spitting out old ideas?
hmm
How'd they ensure the AI was genuinely being creative?
Well, one of the things they're still figuring out with LLMs is how to keep them from getting stuck. Like, they tend to come up with very similar ideas over and over again.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Plus, LLMs aren't really great at evaluating ideas themselves yet. They can be biased towards certain types of ideas. So that's where the human reviewers came in, super crucial.
Okay, so there were checks and balances in place. The AI wasn't just left to its own devices. But the real question is, how did the AI ideas compare to those from actual human researchers?
That's the kicker. The AI-generated ideas were actually judged to be more novel, statistically speaking, than the ones from the humans.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying the AI was better at coming up with new research ideas than the experts?
It really seems that way. And it wasn't just a one-off thing. They used 3 different statistical tests to make sure the results were solid.
Wow, that's incredible. But I have to imagine there's a catch somewhere. Like maybe the AI ideas were super out there and not practical at all.
You're exactly right. It's kind of a trade-off situation. The AI excelled at novelty, but some of its ideas were rated as less feasible to actually put into practice.
Oh.
Maybe they'd need a ton of resources or be way too complex. The human ideas, while maybe not as groundbreaking, were generally more practical.
Okay, so it's not like AI is going to replace researchers tomorrow. It sounds more like there's a real partnership potential here.
Definitely a partnership, not a replacement. And to really grasp this, let's look at a few specific examples from the study.
All right, hit me with those examples.
So one AI-generated idea was titled LLM-directed retrieval querying for improving factuality.
LLM-directed retrieval querying. Okay, break that down for me.
Basically, it's about breaking down a complex question into smaller parts and using an LLM to guide the search for relevant information. Reviewers thought it was pretty novel and gave it a 4.7 out of 10.
So it's like tackling a big problem piece by piece, using the LLM to find the right information for each part. That's clever, but what about an example where the practicality wasn't so great?
Yeah, there was one called modular calibration for long-form answers.
Modular calibration. What was that one about?
This one aimed to improve the accuracy of those long-form answers that LLMs give, like whole essays. It involved breaking the answer down into modules, like paragraphs, evaluating each one, and then somehow combining those evaluations for an overall score.
That sounds like it would be a nightmare to actually implement, computationally speaking.
Right. The reviewers saw the novelty, but pointed out it would probably need a ton of computing power. They gave it a 6 out of 10 for feasibility.
So it seems like AI can definitely come up with some out-there ideas, but human judgment is still key to figuring out which ones are worth pursuing. It really is about partnership, not replacement.
Exactly. And to further support that, the condition where humans re-ranked the AI ideas plus human re-rank, generally scored higher than just AI ideas alone.
Well, that makes perfect sense. I remember the study authors mentioned the humans might have been limited by time when coming up with their own ideas. Are they planning to address that somehow?
They are. They're going to do a follow-up study comparing the AI's ideas to the research papers that get published at EMNLP 2024.
EMNLP 2024. That's a pretty big conference, right?
Yeah, one of the major ones in the field. So it'll be really interesting to see how the AI stacks up against, the best of the best in NLP research.
Definitely. This is already some groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what other fields could this technology completely change?
That's the million-dollar question. But it also brings up some big issues, like how do we give credit where credit is due when AI is involved in the research process?
Right. If AI can be this creative, what happens to things like intellectual property? And how do we make sure that AI doesn't stifle creativity by generating the same ideas over and over?
Exactly. We're just scratching the surface here. This study opens up a whole new world of possibilities, but also a whole new set of challenges we need to think about.
Okay, so AI can generate some truly novel research ideas, but there are some limitations and definitely some things to figure out. I'm curious now, where did the AI really shine within NLP and where did it seem to struggle?
So the area where the AI really stood out was in multilinguality. The reviewers were really impressed with the AI's ideas for bridging language barriers.
Makes sense. I mean, these models are trained on massive amounts of text in tons of different languages.
Yeah.
They're exposed to so much linguistic diversity.
Exactly. But surprisingly, the area where it seemed to struggle the most was math. The AI consistently got lower scores for novelty and excitement when it came to math-related ideas.
Wait, math. I would have thought that would be AI's strong suit, with all this structure and logic involved. Why do you think that was the case?
It's an interesting question. One possibility is that math research often deals with incredibly abstract concepts and complex proofs that might be difficult for AI to fully grasp, at least for now. It kind of highlights that even with all the knowledge we can feed an AI, it still has its limitations. Human intuition and deep understanding are still crucial, especially in certain fields.
That's fascinating. So to all the mathematicians out there, you can breathe a sigh of relief for now. But those working on multilingual challenges, well, you might have some competition on the horizon.
It appears so. This really points to how an AI's strengths and weaknesses are directly tied to the data it's trained on. Give it a task that aligns with its knowledge base, and it can really blow you away with its creativity.
Okay, so we see the potential, the limitations, and the areas where AI shines and struggles. But I'm curious about how these ideas are generated on a technical level. Let's peel back the layers and dive into the specifics.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. One of the key techniques they used is called overgeneration and re-ranking. Basically, the AI first generates a massive amount of ideas, way more than you'd need, and then uses algorithms or human experts to select the best ones.
So it's like a supercharged brainstorming session
Yeah.
followed by a very selective filtering process.
Exactly. And they use both algorithms and human experts for this re-ranking phase. Interestingly, they found that human experts were actually better at re-ranking the AI's ideas than the algorithms.
So humans still have the edge when it comes to judging quality and feasibility. That's reassuring to hear.
It is. It further supports the idea that this is about collaboration, not replacement. We're talking about combining the strengths of both AI and humans for the best results.
Okay, now I'm really curious. Did they actually try to have the AI implement any of its own ideas? Like, did they give it a coding template and let it go?
They did. They wanted to see if the AI could not only come up with ideas, but also take those initial steps toward putting them into practice.
And how did that go? Was it able to translate those ideas into actual functioning code?
It was a mixed bag, honestly. The AI could write code for some of its ideas, but a lot of those implementations had flaws. For example, sometimes it chose a baseline that was too easy to beat or used an evaluation metric that didn't really match the research goal.
So it could write the code, but it didn't necessarily have that deeper understanding needed to make the ideas truly work.
Exactly. Human expertise is still super important when it comes to taking those initial ideas and turning them into functional, meaningful research outcomes.
It sounds like AI can be this incredible tool for inspiration, for pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible. But it's the human researchers who really bring those ideas to life.
I think that's a fantastic way to put it. It's this fascinating dance between human creativity and artificial intelligence, a partnership that has the potential to unlock new knowledge and really push the boundaries of what's possible.
This has been an absolutely mind-blowing deep dive. We've only scratched the surface, but I'm already eager to learn more.
Oh, there's so much more to explore. We haven't even touched on how these AI systems are trained or the specifics of how they generate those novel ideas. We could easily spend another hour talking about the technical side of LLMs and natural language processing.
Or even dedicate an entire deep dive to how we evaluate AI-generated research and the metrics we use to assess things like novelty, feasibility, and impact.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, we're out of time for today.
This research has been really thought-provoking. It's clear that we're on the verge of something truly transformative, but we need to be cautious and responsible as we move forward.
I completely agree. And to our listeners, we encourage you to dive deeper into this topic. Explore the research, join the conversation, and share your thoughts on the future of AI in research.
The future of research is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play in making sure it's a future that benefits everyone.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this first part of our deep dive.
We'll be back soon to delve into the final layer of this study, exploring the specific techniques used to generate these AI-powered ideas and what it all means for the future of research. Stay tuned for more.
Welcome back. Before we took a break, we were digging into how these AI systems actually cook up new research ideas. Let's jump back into that.
Yeah, let's unpack that whole overgeneration and re-ranking thing you mentioned. It sounds super interesting.
Oh, it is. Basically, the AI gets this task: generate a huge volume of ideas, way more than you'd ever need in a typical brainstorm. It's like casting a super wide net.
So it's about quantity at first. Just let the AI's imagination go wild.
Exactly. Then comes the re-ranking, where you sift through all those ideas and pick out the real gems. The researchers used algorithms and human experts for this.
Oh, interesting. What did they find? Was one approach better than the other?
It's funny, they actually found that human experts were better at selecting the most promising ideas. Algorithms were okay, but humans consistently picked out ideas that were novel, feasible, and exciting.
That makes sense. Humans have that intuition, that experience, that deep understanding of the field, right? It's not easy to program that into an algorithm.
Exactly. It really highlights the need for human AI collaboration in research. It's not about replacement, it's about figuring out how to combine the strengths of both.
So it's like using AI to generate those out-of-the-box ideas and then leveraging human expertise to refine them, evaluate them, and guide them toward real-world applications.
You got it. And this study gives us some cool insights into how that collaboration might actually work. They found that even a simple step, like having human experts re-rank the AI's ideas, led to big improvements in quality and feasibility.
So human intervention, even in a basic form, can make a huge difference. It's not just about setting the AI loose and hoping for the best.
Exactly. Human researchers can give the AI context and direction, guide its creative process towards specific research goals. It's about shaping the AI's output, not just passively accepting it.
I like that. It's like having a powerful tool, but you need to know how to use it to get the best results.
That's a great analogy. And as AI keeps evolving, this human-AI collaboration will become even more important. Researchers will need new skills and strategies to work effectively with AI, leveraging its strengths while being aware of its limitations.
It's an exciting time to be in research, that's for sure. All these new possibilities opening up. But it's also a time that requires us to think carefully about the ethical side of these powerful technologies.
Absolutely. As AI gets more integrated into the research process, we need to be really mindful of things like bias, fairness, transparency, and accountability. It's about making sure AI is used responsibly and ethically to advance knowledge and benefit society.
Well said. This deep dive has really been eye-opening. It's incredible to see the potential of AI in research, but it's also clear that there are complex challenges we need to navigate carefully as we move forward.
I agree. It's a journey that requires excitement and caution, innovation and responsibility, and it's a journey that we're all on together as we explore this new era of AI-powered research.
Okay, before we move on, I have one last question. This study was focused on NLP research, but the results were so interesting it makes you wonder, what other fields could AI potentially revolutionize?
That's the question on everyone's mind right now. We're already seeing AI being explored in fields like drug discovery, materials science, climate modeling, even art and music creation.
It's amazing to think about the impact AI could have on our understanding of the world and our ability to solve some of the biggest challenges facing humanity.
It is. But it's important to remember that AI is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. The future of AI-powered research really depends on the choices we make today, the ethical principles we follow, and how well we can combine human ingenuity with artificial intelligence.
This has been a truly thought-provoking conversation. It's left me feeling both excited and cautious. It's clear that we're at the beginning of something truly transformative, but we need to approach it with a good balance of enthusiasm and responsibility.
Well said. To our listeners, we encourage you to keep learning about this topic, explore the research, join the discussions, and share your own perspectives on how we can use AI for good.
Absolutely. The future of research is being shaped right now, and we all have a role to play in ensuring it benefits all of us. Welcome back. Before we wrapped up, we were talking about the nitty-gritty of how these AI systems create these novel research ideas.
Right. We didn't really get into the specifics of the process itself.
Yeah, and I'm really curious about that. What's going on under the hood? How are they doing this?
Well, a key technique they used, and we touched on this earlier, is called overgeneration and re-ranking. It's a two-step process, really.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does overgeneration and re-ranking actually mean?
So first, the AI is basically told to just generate a ton of ideas, way more than you would need in a normal brainstorming session. Think of it like a brainstorming session on steroids.
So it's all about quantity at the beginning. Just let the AI go wild and see what it comes up with.
Exactly. The idea is to explore a wide range of possibilities, no matter how out there they might seem. Most of them won't be useful, but that's okay.
Makes sense. Cast a wide net and see what you catch.
Right. But then comes the re-ranking part. That's where the real magic happens. You got to separate the good ideas from the, well, not so good ones.
That's where you separate the wheat from the chaff.
Exactly. And for this study, they used both automated algorithms and human experts to sift through those AI-generated ideas and rank them.
So you have both machines and humans evaluating the ideas. I'm curious which one did better.
That's what's really interesting. They found that human experts were consistently better at picking out the most promising ideas from all the AI output.
So human judgment still wins the day.
It seems that way. The algorithms did okay, but the humans were much better at identifying ideas that were not only novel, but also feasible and actually aligned with the goals of the research.
That makes sense. I mean, humans have experience, intuition, they understand the field in a way that algorithms don't, at least not yet.
Exactly. This finding really reinforces what we've been talking about this whole time. It's not about replacing human researchers. It's about finding the best ways to use AI to enhance and complement human expertise.
It's like using AI to generate these really out there ideas and then relying on human judgment to refine them, evaluate them, and figure out how to apply them in the real world.
Absolutely. And it raises a lot of really interesting questions about the future of research. How are these new AI tools going to change the way we do research? How can we make sure that AI is being used responsibly and ethically in the pursuit of knowledge?
These are questions that we as a society really need to start thinking about now.
I agree. And as these technologies continue to evolve, it's crucial that we have open, honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of AI in research.
Well, I think this deep dive has been a great start to that conversation. It's given us a lot to think about for sure.
I hope so. And I hope it sparks some curiosity in our listeners.
To all our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep learning about this topic, explore the research, engage in the discussions, and share your own thoughts on the future of AI and research.
The future of research is being shaped right now, and it's a conversation that we all need to be a part of.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. We've really enjoyed exploring the world of AI-generated research ideas.
And we hope you'll join us again next time for another deep dive into the world of cutting-edge research and technology.
All right, buckle up, everybody. We're taking a deep dive into a research paper that asks a pretty wild question. Can AI come up with truly new research ideas?
Not just any research, though, right? We're talking about NLP, natural language processing, a field where some of the smartest people are already pushing the limits.
Exactly, NLP. And what's really fascinating here is these researchers didn't just sit around and theorize about it. They actually designed a whole experiment, like a real-world test to see if AI could really compete with the big brains of NLP research.
Yeah, and it wasn't a small experiment either. They got over 100 NLP experts involved.
Over 100, wow. So it's like a research idea showdown. AI versus human brain power? And what happened? Did the AI come up with some decent ideas, or was it totally outclassed?
Well, get this. The AI-generated ideas were actually rated as more novel, even after accounting for statistical variations and potential biases.
More novel.
Yeah.
Okay. So the AI was actually coming up with more original ideas than the human experts.
That's right. And this is where it gets really interesting for our listeners who love math, and I know there are a lot of you out there. This study actually explored generating novel ideas across 7 different areas of NLP research, and one of those areas was math.
Hold on, you're telling me this AI is coming up with ideas that are not only new but more original than what human experts are coming up with in math. I mean, that's mind-blowing. So tell me, how did they actually set up this experiment? How did they make sure it was a fair fight?
They were very careful about that. To avoid any bias in the kinds of ideas that were generated, they chose 7 very specific research topics: bias, coding, safety, multilinguality, factuality, math, and uncertainty.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want the AI to have an advantage just because it's better at, let's say, generating ideas about coding versus uncertainty. But how do they actually compare the ideas themselves? Ideas can be expressed in so many different ways. How do you make sure you're comparing apples to apples?
That's a great question. And they had a really clever solution for that. They used a structured template for all the research ideas, whether they came from a human or the AI. This made sure there was a consistent level of detail so the reviewers wouldn't be swayed by the presentation style or anything like that.
So it's like stripping away all the fancy wording and just getting down to the bare bones of the idea. Smart move. Okay, so who were the brave souls on the front lines of this research idea battle royale?
Well, on the human side, we're talking about a serious brain trust. Over 100 NLP researchers, with 49 of them tasked with actually writing research ideas, and 79 assigned to review those ideas.
Yeah, that's a lot of brain power.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing these weren't just casual reviewers, right? The paper mentioned that they were highly qualified, many with experience reviewing for major AI conferences.
Absolutely. These are the people who set the standards in NLP research. They know what a good idea looks like.
And they weren't just whipping up these ideas in a few minutes, were they?
No, not at all. The paper actually mentions that the human writers spent an average of 5.5 hours on each idea.
5.5 hours.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I'm betting the AI is just sipping on digital coffee, churning out ideas in milliseconds. Okay, enough about the humans. Let's meet the AI contender. How did this digital brain come up with its ideas?
The AI had a three-step process. First, it generated what they called seed ideas using a technique called retrieval augmentation. Imagine giving the AI access to a gigantic library of existing research papers and teaching it to pull out the relevant nuggets of information.
So it's not just pulling ideas out of thin air, it's actually grounding its ideas in existing knowledge,
Yeah.
just like any good researcher would when they're starting a new project.
Exactly. And then it expands those seed ideas into full-fledged research proposals. And finally, it ranks its own generated ideas, picking out the most promising ones.
Wait, hold on. How does an AI judge the quality of research ideas? Isn't that incredibly subjective, even for humans?
That's where it gets really interesting. They actually trained a separate language model specifically for this ranking task, and they used data from ICLR 2024 reviews, which is a top AI conference, to teach this model what a high-quality research proposal actually looks like.
So they basically gave the AI a crash course in research idea evaluation using real-world feedback from experts. Pretty clever.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got the contenders, we've got the ideas. How did they actually decide who won this research idea showdown?
Well, they had these expert reviewers score each idea on 5 different criteria: novelty, excitement, feasibility, expected effectiveness, and overall quality. And here's the crucial part. It was a blind review. They had no idea whether an idea came from a human or the AI.
That's important. No bias creeping in there. So, drum roll, please. What were the results? Who came out on top?
We already spilled the beans a bit, right?
Yeah.
The AI-generated ideas were judged to be significantly more novel than the ones generated by humans.
Right. More novel. But it wasn't a complete sweep for the AI, was it?
No, you're right. It wasn't a total knockout. While the AI excelled at novelty, the reviewers often felt that the human ideas were more feasible, meaning they were more likely to actually be implemented successfully.
Ah, so it's a classic trade-off. Super creative, out-of-the-box thinking from the AI, but maybe a bit pie in the sky at times? Whereas the humans played it a bit safer, but their ideas were more grounded in what's realistically possible right now. Before we move on, can we give our listener a bit more to chew on? Can you share some specific examples of the actual ideas that were generated, not just the general topics?
Absolutely. We can't go into the full proposals here, but I can give you a taste with some of the intriguing titles. For example, in the math category, one AI-generated idea was titled Collaborative Reasoning for Math Word Problems. And on the same topic, a human-generated idea was titled Proof in the Era of LLMs, Bridging the Gap Between Formal and Informal Reasoning. If any of our listeners are dying to see the full proposals, they can find them in the appendix of the research paper.
Okay, just those titles alone are making my brain tingle. Proof in the era of LLMs, that's a deep dive I'd love to have. But for now, let's go beyond just the scores. What else did the researchers learn from actually digging into the reviewer comments? What were the experts saying about the strengths and weaknesses of each approach beyond just those 5 criteria?
The qualitative analysis is really where it gets juicy. Remember how we talked about feasibility being a potential challenge for the AI? Well, some reviewers explicitly mentioned this in their comments, saying that some of the AI ideas, while creative, were just too resource-intensive or technically challenging to actually pull off.
So, brilliant on paper, but maybe not so much in the lab. Any specific examples of that?
One reviewer called out an AI idea that involved fine-tuning the Bloom language model, which has a massive 176 billion parameters. And the reviewer basically said that fine-tuning a model of that scale would require an insane amount of computing power, making it basically impossible for most researchers to actually do.
Yeah, it's like suggesting we build a spaceship just to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Big ideas, but maybe not grounded in reality.
Exactly. On the other hand, reviewers often noted that the human ideas, while maybe not as novel in the strictest sense, were often focused on solutions that were much more practical and achievable with the resources we have available today.
So it seems like the human researchers were playing it a bit safer, sticking to what they knew was possible, while the AI was swinging for the fences, even if it meant striking out sometimes. That raises an interesting question. Can we teach the AI to not only come up with groundbreaking ideas, but also filter those ideas based on feasibility and what's actually possible with today's technology?
Now, that's a great question, and it really gets to the heart of what the future of research might look like. Imagine an AI research assistant that could not only suggest truly novel ideas, but also tell you which of those ideas are actually worth pursuing. That would be a game changer.
Now that you mention it, wasn't there another challenge that came up with the AI? Something about duplicate ideas.
You're right. As they scaled up the number of ideas the AI generated, they noticed that the proportion of truly unique ideas actually decreased. It seemed like the AI was getting stuck in patterns, repeating similar ideas, even though they were still judged as being novel.
So more ideas, but less originality as it churns them out. That seems like a big hurdle to overcome if AI is truly going to be a partner in research.
Absolutely. It highlights the limitations of current language models. They can be incredibly creative, but they're also prone to getting stuck in those patterns, which can limit their ability to consistently come up with truly groundbreaking original ideas.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've got this AI that's capable of generating novel research ideas, even outperforming human experts in some cases. But there are limitations, challenges that need to be addressed if we want to really unlock the full potential of AI in research. Before we move on, can we circle back to that point about AI not being quite ready to reliably judge research ideas? I think that's important for our listener to keep in mind as AI tools become more and more common in research.
It is an important point. While the AI in this study showed some ability to assess the quality of research ideas, it's not quite there yet. The researchers found that even the best AI evaluator they tested still had a lower agreement with human judgments compared to the agreement between human reviewers themselves.
So a word of caution to everyone out there. AI can be a valuable tool for exploring new ideas. But for now, we humans are still the best judges of what's truly valuable and worth pursuing.
Exactly. Critical thinking and human judgment are more important than ever, especially in a world where AI is increasingly capable of generating outputs that sound very persuasive but might be flawed or misleading.
This is fascinating stuff, but I feel like we're just scratching the surface here.
We are. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll go even deeper into the specifics of the research paper. We'll explore the AI agent's methodology in more detail, analyze some of those example ideas more closely, and really examine those insightful reviewer comments to get a better understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of both human and AI-generated research ideas.
Can't wait. It's time to put on our thinking caps and really unpack the nuances of this groundbreaking research. Stay tuned, folks. Things are about to get even more interesting.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of AI-generated research ideas. Let's take a closer look at how this AI agent actually managed to outperform human experts when it came to generating those novel research ideas. Remember, we're talking about a three-step process here. Generating those initial seed ideas, fleshing them out into full research proposals, and then ranking those proposals to figure out which ones are the most promising.
Right, and that first step, the seed idea generation, is where that retrieval augmentation thing comes in, if I remember correctly. I have to admit that still sounds a bit intimidating to me.
It might sound complex, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. Think of it this way. They basically gave the AI access to this massive database of existing research papers, right? And then they taught it how to extract the relevant bits of information that could potentially spark a new idea. It's like having this tireless digital research assistant that can scan through mountains of literature and highlight the most promising avenues for exploration.
Okay, so it's not just randomly combining words or concepts, it's actually grounding its ideas in real existing research. Just like, a human researcher would when they're doing a literature review at the beginning of a project.
Exactly. And in this study, they used a specific type of retrieval augmentation called dense passage retrieval. Now, using embeddings, the AI could actually find papers that went beyond just matching keywords. It was able to really understand the meaning of that research topic and identify papers that were semantically similar, just like a seasoned researcher would do.
That's really impressive. So the AI has all this knowledge from existing papers. But how does it actually go from there to crafting those seed ideas? How do you go from a bunch of research papers to that spark of a new idea?
Well, that's where the researchers got really creative. They used a technique called prompt engineering. And this basically involves carefully crafting instructions or prompts to guide the AI's behavior. In this case, they designed a special prompt structure that actually combined the research topic with little snippets of text from those relevant papers that the AI had identified.
So they're giving the AI a blend of the research goal and the existing knowledge. It's like they're giving it a recipe for innovation.
I like that analogy. And that recipe helped the AI generate those initial seed ideas, which of course were just the starting point. The next step was to transform those seeds into full-fledged research proposals.
Right, because a seed idea is one thing, but a full research proposal is a whole other level of detail. How did they actually bridge that gap?
Well, that's where the power of large language models, or LLMs as they're called, really comes into play. The researchers used a really powerful LLM to expand those seed ideas, prompting it to elaborate on the core concepts, propose specific methodologies, and really outline potential experiments.
So it's like taking a rough sketch and turning it into a detailed blueprint for a building.
Exactly. And remember that structured template we talked about earlier, the one that made sure it was a level playing field? Well, the LLM was actually instructed to stick to that template, making sure that both human and AI-generated proposals had that same level of detail, followed the same structure.
Got it. So whether the idea came from a human or the AI, it had to be presented in the same way. No unfair advantages.
Yep.
But now you potentially got hundreds of research proposals, right? How do you separate the wheat from the chaff? How does the AI actually figure out which of those ideas are the most promising ones?
And that brings us to the third and final step, ranking. This is where that separate LLM we mentioned before comes into play, the one that they trained specifically to evaluate research proposals.
Right, the one that learned from those ICLR reviews. It's like it's acting as a panel of expert AI reviewers, right? Going through all those proposals and giving them a thumbs up or thumbs down based on what it's learned about what makes a good research proposal.
That's a great way to visualize it. And that's how they arrived at that surprising result we talked about earlier, that the top-ranked AI-generated ideas were actually judged by those human experts as being more novel than the human-generated ones.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think that we've reached a point where AI can not only come up with research ideas, but can actually play a role in deciding which of those ideas are actually worth exploring further.
It is, and while this study focused specifically on NLP, I think it really opens up a whole world of possibilities for other fields too. I mean, if AI can outperform humans in generating novel research ideas in one area, it makes you wonder, is it just a matter of time before we see similar results in other areas of research as well?
It's a big question. How will this change the way we do research in the future? What kinds of new collaborations between humans and AI might emerge? And of course, what are the ethical implications we need to be thinking about as AI plays a larger role in research?
Those are all excellent points. This study definitely gives us a lot to think about. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's zoom back in and actually analyze some of the specific ideas that were generated in this study, both by the AI and the humans. We kind of teased a couple of those idea titles earlier, but I think it's time to really dive deeper into what those ideas actually proposed. Let's start with that AI-generated idea, collaborative reasoning for math word problems.
I'm all ears. This one definitely caught my attention. What exactly was the AI suggesting with this idea?
So this idea was focused on using LLMs to solve math word problems, right? And as you probably know, word problems are notoriously difficult for AI systems because they require both linguistic understanding and mathematical reasoning. It's not just about crunching numbers, it's about understanding the context, the relationships between the different elements in the problem, and then applying the right mathematical operations.
Right. It's like understanding the story behind the math problem.
Yeah.
So how is the AI actually proposing to tackle this challenge?
Well, the AI actually proposed this really interesting multi-step process where different LLMs would actually collaborate with each other, each specializing in a specific aspect of that problem-solving process. Imagine like one LLM focused on extracting the key information from the word problem, another LLM handling mathematical calculations, and then yet another LLM tasked with verifying the solution, making sure that it actually makes sense in the context of the problem.
Wow, so it's like assembling a team of AI specialists to tackle a complex problem. That's a pretty innovative approach.
It is, and it actually reflects this growing trend in AI research where we're seeing this shift away from relying on single, all-powerful models and moving towards creating systems that are composed of multiple specialized AI agents that can actually work together.
It's like the old saying, teamwork makes the dream work, but with AI. Okay, so that's the AI's take on tackling math word problems. Now, what about that human-generated idea, the one titled Proof in the Era of LLMs, Bridging the Gap Between Formal and Informal Reasoning? That one sounds really ambitious.
It does, and it's one that really intrigued me as well. This idea goes right to the core of mathematical reasoning, which is, of course, proofs.
Now, for our listeners who might need a little refresher from high school geometry, can you remind us what a mathematical proof actually is?
Of course. So, a mathematical proof is basically a step-by-step logical argument that demonstrates the truth of a mathematical statement. It's really the foundation of mathematics. It's what makes sure that our conclusions aren't based on just intuition or just observation, but on rigorous logical deduction.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does this all relate to LLMs?
Well, as impressive as LLMs are, they can generate human-like text, they can write code, they can answer questions, they can even write stories. They often struggle with the kind of rigor and formality that's really required for mathematical proofs.
I guess it's a lot easier to write a poem than to prove a theorem, right?
A great way to put it. And that's exactly where this human-generated idea comes in. It actually proposes using LLMs to help bridge that gap between that informal, intuitive way we often think about math and that formal, rigorous language of proofs.
So using AI to help us become better mathematicians, to think more rigorously about math.
Exactly. The idea suggests using LLMs in various ways to assist mathematicians, to help them articulate their ideas more clearly, to generate outlines or even skeletons of proofs, and even to suggest potential strategies or approaches for tackling complex proofs.
It's like having this AI research assistant that can help you structure your thoughts, make sure that your arguments are logically sound, and really guide you towards a more rigorous way of thinking about a problem.
Precisely. And this idea, while maybe not as groundbreaking in that traditional sense of novelty, really highlights this super important aspect of AI's potential in research, which is augmentation.
Augmentation, meaning using AI not necessarily to replace human researchers, but to enhance their capabilities,
Yeah.
to help them achieve things that they couldn't do as easily on their own.
Exactly. And I think this idea really showcases that potential. It's not about AI proving theorems for us. It's about AI helping us become better provers ourselves.
That's a really exciting prospect. And it makes you wonder what other areas of research might benefit from this kind of AI-powered augmentation.
The possibilities are really vast. Imagine AI systems that could help us design better experiments, help us analyze data more effectively, or even help us generate hypotheses that we might never have even considered on our own.
This is getting me really fired up about the future of research. But we still have more to unpack from this particular study, right? What about those reviewer comments we talked about, the ones that really give us that glimpse into how AI and humans approach research differently?
You're right, those comments are like a goldmine of information. They really offer a window into the AI's unique strengths and weaknesses when it comes to generating research ideas. And you know what? In the next part of our deep dive, we're actually going to delve into those comments. We're going to analyze the specific praise and criticisms that were leveled at both the human and AI-generated ideas. It's going to be fascinating to see what those expert reviewers had to say.
I can't wait to hear it. I'm ready to put on my critical thinking hat and really get into the nitty-gritty of what makes a good research idea, as judged by those who know best, the experts themselves. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been exploring this really fascinating question of whether AI can come up with truly novel research ideas, specifically in the field of NLP. And now for the grand finale, we're going behind the scenes, taking a look at what those expert reviewers had to say about the ideas themselves, both the ones cooked up by the AI and the ones crafted by their fellow humans.
It's super interesting because these comments weren't just about scores. They actually tell us a lot about how differently humans and AI approach the whole research process. It's like we're getting a glimpse into how each side thinks.
Okay, I'm ready for the juicy details.
Hmm.
Let's start with the AI-generated ideas. We know they scored really high on novelty, but what were some of the criticisms the reviewers had? Where did the AI kind of stumble?
Well, one theme that kept popping up was feasibility. Reviewers often pointed out that the AI sometimes came up with ideas that sounded amazing on paper, but were just way too resource intensive or technically difficult to actually pull off in the real world.
So it's like the AI has all these grand visions, but doesn't really understand the practical limitations of actually implementing them. No concept of budget constraints or the current state of technology.
Exactly. And this really highlights a key area for improvement as we develop AI systems for this purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's not enough for them to just be creative. They also need a sense of what's actually doable, what's feasible, given the resources that we have available.
It's like having a brainstorming partner who throws out 100 ideas, but then you're left to figure out which ones you can actually turn into reality.
A perfect analogy. And it's not just about technical feasibility either. Reviewers also noted that some AI-generated ideas lacked clarity or a sense of focus. One reviewer even described an AI idea as a hodgepodge of interesting concepts without a clear unifying theme.
So the AI might be great at spitting out novel concepts, but it hasn't quite mastered the art of weaving those concepts into a coherent and well-defined research direction.
That's a good way to put it. And it really speaks to the importance of human expertise in shaping research. We humans are still better at recognizing patterns, connecting seemingly unrelated ideas, and crafting a compelling narrative that actually drives research forward.
Okay, so feasibility and clarity, those were two sticking points for the AI. But what about the positives? What aspects of the AI-generated ideas did the reviewers actually like?
Oh, plenty. Reviewers frequently commented on the originality and unexpectedness of the AI suggestions. One reviewer even said that an AI idea was unlike anything I've ever seen proposed in this field.
Wow, so the AI really lived up to its billing as this novelty machine. It was coming up with ideas that literally no human had thought of before.
Exactly. And that's honestly one of the most exciting things about using AI in research. It can help us break free from our usual ways of thinking and explore truly uncharted territory. It's like having an AI partner who's constantly pushing us beyond our comfort zones, inspiring us to think outside the box.
I love that idea. It's like the AI is giving us a fresh perspective, a new lens to view old problems.
Precisely. And that fresh perspective can be incredibly valuable in research, where breakthroughs often come from challenging long-held assumptions and exploring radically new approaches.
Okay, so we've seen the good and the bad when it comes to the AI-generated ideas. What about the human-generated ones? We know they were praised for being feasible, but where did they fall short?
One observation that came up repeatedly was a tendency towards incrementalism. Reviewers sometimes noted that while the human-generated ideas were sound and well executed, they kind of lacked that wow factor of the AI's more unconventional suggestions.
So it's like the humans were playing it safe, sticking to well-trodden paths, while the AI was a bit bolder, more willing to venture into the unknown.
That's a great way to put it. And, this might be a challenge for us humans, right? We can get stuck in our familiar ways of thinking, relying on established methods and approaches, even when those approaches might not be the most innovative or the most effective.
It's like we've created these mental ruts for ourselves, and it takes something like AI to kind of jolt us out of them and help us see new possibilities.
Love that image. And it really reinforces this idea that the most powerful approach to research in the future might actually be a collaboration between humans and AI. The AI can bring that fresh perspective, that willingness to challenge the status quo, while we humans provide the expertise, the judgment, and that grounding in reality to actually turn those bold ideas into something truly impactful.
I see a beautiful synergy emerging here, a true partnership where each side complements the strengths of the other.
Couldn't agree more. And I think we're going to see even more of these really creative and fruitful collaborations as AI systems continue to advance.
All right, so we've explored the AI, the human researchers, the clash of their ideas, and all those insightful comments from those expert reviewers. What's the big takeaway here? What should our mathematically inclined listener be pondering as they go about their day?
I think the key message is this. AI has the potential to be a truly incredible tool for driving innovation and discovery, even in fields as complex and demanding as NLP. But we have to remember that AI is not a replacement for human ingenuity and expertise.
It's about partnership, not replacement.
Exactly. AI can help us generate novel ideas, explore uncharted territory, or really push the boundaries of what's possible. But ultimately, it's up to us humans to guide those ideas, refine them, and make sure that they lead to meaningful and impactful outcomes.
So to all our listeners out there, embrace the possibilities of AI, but don't give up your role as a critical thinker, a creative problem solver, and a driver of innovation. The future of research is a collaborative one. It's this beautiful dance between human ingenuity and the boundless potential of AI.
Beautifully said. It's an exciting frontier, and who knows what groundbreaking discoveries await us as we continue to explore it together.
This has been an incredible journey. A huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this fascinating research. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. All right, ready to dive in. We're looking at a study today that's pretty wild, actually. They had human researchers and an AI go head-to-head trying to come up with the most novel NLP research ideas.
You know, it's really something, isn't it? Putting human ingenuity up against AI in the realm of research, like something out of science fiction.
Yeah, it kind of is, huh?
Yeah.
And they really didn't make it easy on the AI either. Over 100 NLP experts involved, some generating those ideas, others judging them blind, really wanted to see if AI could stack up against, some of the brightest minds out there.
Absolutely. And the rigor of this whole study is impressive, really. They standardized how those ideas were formatted, had both humans and the AI tackling the same 7 NLP topics. And even those blind reviews, they really went all out to ensure a fair fight.
Okay, so real quick for anyone tuning in, NLP, that stands for natural language processing. It's all about getting computers to work with human language, understand it, like what we're doing right now. And for this study, they looked at some pretty specific NLP research areas, things like bias in AI, coding applications, multilinguality, stuff like that.
Right, exactly. And this is where things get interesting. The AI they used, it wasn't just throwing out random ideas. They designed it with some pretty clever techniques. Retrieval augmentation, that's one of them.
Yeah.
It means the AI pulled in information, relevant info, from a massive database of existing research.
So it wasn't starting from scratch. It was building on like the whole history of research in the field.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Giving it access to a giant library or something.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, yeah. And once it had all this information, it used a large language model, an LLM, to actually generate the ideas, multiple ideas based on what it had learned. But, and here's a really interesting part, it then used another LLM, one trained on actual research paper reviews, to rank those ideas based on, predicted quality.
Hold on. So the AI was basically, acting like its own editor, picking out the best ideas from its own little brainstorm session. That's pretty fascinating. Like it's developing its own judgment about what makes a good research idea. Makes you wonder what else these things could learn to do.
Absolutely, and this is crucial because the researchers were really interested in the novelty of the ideas. Could the AI come up with something truly new, something exciting that even experienced researchers hadn't thought of?
And it sounds like the answer is a big fat YS. The AI-generated ideas consistently judged as more novel. That's huge. It means the AI was thinking outside the box, going where even the humans hadn't.
Remarkable, really. But you mentioned earlier there were some trade-offs, right,
Yeah.
with the AI's performance.
Yeah, you said something about feasibility. Like, even if the idea is amazing, maybe it'd be incredibly difficult to actually pull off. What were the limitations there?
Right, exactly. So it excelled in novelty, no question. But sometimes those ideas weren't very feasible. Like one example was it came up with this idea involving fine-tuning a huge language model, 176 billion parameters, an insane amount of computational power and resources you'd need for that.
So while the idea itself might be theoretically interesting, actually putting it into practice might be impossible, at least with current technology. It's like the AI is brilliant, but maybe a little impractical. Full of amazing ideas, but needs some help, with the real-world application.
Precisely. And that's where the human element, it still plays a vital role. The researchers, they wanted to see what if you combine that AI ability to generate those novel ideas with human expertise, to evaluate how feasible they are.
So they were trying to create, like, the ultimate research dream team. AI for the outside-the-box thinking, humans for the reality check. How'd they do that?
Well, one part of the study they did was have human experts re-rank the AI's ideas, basically filtering out the ones that were just too resource-intensive and practical, seeing if that combination, the AI novelty and human filtering, if that could lead to a set of ideas that were both groundbreaking and actually achievable.
And remember those expert reviewers we talked about? This is where things get really interesting, I think. So we know they were judging these ideas blind, but what were they looking for specifically? How'd they decide which ideas were the best?
So those 79 NLP experts, they had quite the task, didn't they? Scoring each idea on 5 criteria: novelty, excitement, feasibility, effectiveness, and an overall score. And remember, they had absolutely no idea where these ideas came from, human or AI. True blind taste test for science.
Yeah, talk about pressure. You're judging these groundbreaking ideas without knowing the source. Did any of the reviewers suspect something? Were they able to guess which ones were AI generated?
And that's what makes this so fascinating. The researchers actually did a separate test, specifically asked experts to try and tell the difference, AI versus human. And get this, the accuracy, 50%. Basically, random chance.
Wow, so not only were the ideas novel, but they were presented in a way that was indistinguishable from a human researcher's work.
That's impressive, but also kind of unsettling, right?
Yeah.
Shows how far these large language models have come.
It does raise some interesting questions, for sure, about authorship, creativity, all that. But let's get back to the judging itself. Overall results. Did the AI just dominate across the board?
Okay, yeah, let's break it down. We know it was a powerhouse on novelty, but what about those other key criteria? How did it do on excitement, effectiveness, all that?
All right, so novelty first. Landslide victory for the AI, no question. All three conditions, human ideas, AI ideas re-ranked by humans, the AI consistently scored way higher on novelty.
Hmm.
And these results, they held up under multiple statistical tests. This wasn't just a fluke. That's really remarkable. It seems like the AI was able to, I don't know, tap into this wellspring of fresh perspectives, things that even these seasoned researchers may have missed, you know?
Exactly. Reinforces the idea that AI could be an invaluable tool to break free from our own preconceived notions, biases, all that. But like we said before, there were trade-offs. Excelled in novelty, sure, but sometimes stumbled when it came to feasibility, especially with those resource-heavy ideas.
Right. That brilliant but impractical thing we were talking about. So what about the other criteria then? Excitement, effectiveness. Did the AI hold its own there?
This is where it gets even more interesting. Excitement, the AI actually did really well, often scored significantly better than human ideas even. Seems it was able to capture that spark, the intrigue, the possibility, what makes a research idea truly captivating.
So it wasn't just spitting out, dry technical concepts. It was able to tap into that sense of wonder that drives scientific exploration.
That's exciting, honestly. What about effectiveness, though? Could the reviewers actually see these ideas working in practice? Well, interestingly, the AI was pretty comparable to humans on effectiveness. So while some ideas might have been a bit, I don't know, out there, the reviewers didn't dismiss them as completely unworkable. Even when the AI was pushing the boundaries, it still managed to present ideas that had a kernel of, plausibility.
All right, so let's recap. AI wins on novelty, does well on excitement, holds its own on effectiveness. But let's zoom out a bit here. What does this actually mean for the future of NLP? Like big picture stuff.
That's the million-dollar question, right? And to really understand the impact, we got to go beyond just the numbers into the qualitative insights. What were the reviewers actually saying about the AI's ideas? What specific strengths, weaknesses stood out to them?
Yeah, let's dig into the good stuff. What really struck these experts as they were going through the ideas, blind to their origins? What kind of feedback were they giving?
Well, one thing that came up again and again was just the sheer originality. Words like fresh, unique, out of the box, constantly popping up in their comments.
So it wasn't just that the ideas were different. They were genuinely new, interesting, pushing the boundaries of what these experts had seen before.
Exactly. The reviewers, they felt like the AI was challenging their assumptions, making them think about things from a new angle, and that's incredibly valuable in any field, but especially one as fast-moving as NLP.
I'm starting to see why people are so excited about the potential of AI in research. It's like having a brainstorming partner who can come up with things you never would have thought of on your own. Someone to help you see the world differently.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And remember, the goal here isn't to replace human researchers, it's to augment them, open up new avenues, things that might otherwise stay hidden.
Okay, so we've established that the AI, master of novelty, sparks excitement. But what about the downsides?
Yeah.
Any common criticisms of the AI-generated ideas?
Oh, there were, definitely. And this goes back to that feasibility issue we talked about. Reviewers often noted that, okay, an AI idea might sound cool, but it wasn't always clear how you'd actually implement it. Some were too vague, lacked specific details, a clear path to actually test them.
So it's sketching out the concept, but not providing the blueprints. A lot of what-ifs, not a lot of how-tos.
Perfect analogy. And this highlights a key limitation of LLMs, at least right now. They can generate impressive-sounding text, sure, but they don't always grasp the real-world constraints of research. They can see the destination, but not necessarily map out the route.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You can tell an AI, write a research proposal, but it doesn't really understand the nitty-gritty of collecting data, analyzing results, all the complexities of a real-world experiment.
Exactly. And that's why human expertise is still essential. The researchers found that even something as simple as having human experts re-rank the AI's ideas, it could dramatically improve their feasibility without sacrificing that novelty we're after.
So finding the right balance then. AI to push the boundaries, humans to ground those ideas in reality. That collaboration, that seems to be the key.
Absolutely. This study, it gives us a glimpse into a future where AI and human researchers, they're working together, each contributing their unique strengths, driving scientific progress. It's a fascinating partnership, potentially transformative.
This is all incredibly promising, but gotta ask, what about the potential downsides? Some people might worry about AI taking over research completely or, leading to a lack of diversity if we rely on it too heavily.
Valid concerns, no question. And one interesting thing from the study was that, yeah, the AI was great at novelty, but it did sometimes struggle with diversity, tended to produce ideas that were similar in style, approach, clustering around certain themes.
So it's like exploring a whole new continent of ideas, but maybe getting stuck in a particular region, not venturing out far enough to see all the diverse landscapes that are out there.
Exactly. Raises the question, how can we train AI to be more exploratory, to consider a wider range of perspectives, approaches? It's a challenge, definitely. Researchers are working on it, trying to harness the full potential while mitigating those biases.
Feels like we're just scratching the surface here, so many questions, possibilities. Makes you wonder, are these limitations just temporary? What happens when AI gets even smarter, even more capable?
Yeah, it really does feel like we're at this turning point, right on the edge of something big. And remember, this study, it was just NLP, but the implications, they go way beyond that. If AI can do this for research in one field, imagine what it could do for, I don't know, medicine, materials science, even physics.
It's almost hard to wrap your head around. AI helping design life-saving drugs, discover new energy sources, unlock the secrets of the universe. I mean, it sounds like science fiction, but it feels like we're getting closer every day.
What's even more fascinating is how this could impact human creativity as a whole, not just research. Think about it, AI collaborating with artists, musicians, writers, architects. The possibilities are endless.
Makes you wonder, if it can push the boundaries of research, could it do the same for art, music, literature? Could we see entirely new forms of creative expression come out of this? It's kind of mind-blowing.
And there's already some really cool examples of that happening. There was this one study, researchers found that exposure to AI-generated ideas actually led to more creative, more diverse ideas from the human participants. Like the AI was acting as a muse, inspiring them.
So not only was it coming up with ideas, but it was making the humans more creative. That's wild. It almost makes you wonder if AI could help us unlock some creative potential that we didn't even know we had.
That's what's so exciting, isn't it? It suggests AI isn't just about automation or number crunching, but that it could actually be this catalyst for human ingenuity. And as AI keeps getting better, who knows what amazing collaborations we'll see.
This all sounds so incredibly promising, but I also can't help but think about the potential pitfalls. We've talked about diversity, feasibility, but what about the ethical side of things? If AI is playing a bigger role in idea creation, who gets credit? What if an AI comes up with something that leads to like a huge breakthrough, a profitable invention even?
Yeah, these are big questions, absolutely crucial, things we need to really grapple with as AI gets more integrated into our creative processes. Intellectual property rights, how we value and reward both human and artificial creativity. It's a complex issue, no easy answers.
It really seems like we're entering a whole new era of creativity, and we're still writing the rule book as we go. How do we make sure AI enhances human creativity rather than replaces it? How do we create that collaborative environment where both humans and AI can thrive?
Those are the challenges that lie ahead, for sure. And it's not just about laws or technology, it's about having these thoughtful conversations, engaging with diverse perspectives, being mindful of the consequences of our choices.
This whole deep dive has really gotten me thinking about the relationship between humans and AI. It's evolving so rapidly, and it's clear that AI has incredible potential, but it's up to us to use it wisely, responsibly.
I couldn't agree more. And as we move into this new era, it's more important than ever to stay informed, think critically, and actively shape the future we want to see.
So for our listeners out there, what's the main takeaway? What should they be thinking about as they go about their day, their work, their own creative pursuits?
I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to embrace the potential of AI. It's not here to replace us. It's here to help us reach new heights, to be more creative, more innovative.
And as we venture into this uncharted territory, let's do it with curiosity, collaboration, and a commitment to using this powerful technology for good.
Well said. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.
All right, get this. AI can come up with better research ideas than actual human experts.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's what this study's saying anyway.
Hmm.
You'd think, us humans would have the edge when it comes to thinking outside the box and all that.
You would think so.
But this research is really challenging that assumption.
Is that right?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And get this, over 100 NLP researchers were involved.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not just, some small-scale thing.
Okay, so how did they design this thing? Like, was it just throwing prompts at a chatbot?
No, no, no. It was much more rigorous than that. Like, we're talking about a real research showdown here, human versus AI. So let's break down how they structured this whole experiment.
Oh, good.
And maybe, what it might mean for the future of research in general.
Right, right.
So to start, they focused on prompting-based NLP research.
Okay, makes sense.
Which, given the current state of the art, is kind of a given. But to make it fair, they didn't want to just give the AI, free reign over the entire field of NLP.
Right.
So they narrowed it down to 7 specific research topics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, things like bias in AI safety, things like
Got it, got it. So that levels the playing field a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, okay, AI, you're good with language,
Mm-hmm.
but can you come up with something new within these specific areas?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And to control for even more valuables, they used a standardized idea template
Interesting.
for all the submissions.
Oh, wow.
And they even went so far as to, normalize the writing style.
Oh, wow.
So you couldn't tell if an idea came from a human or AI.
Oh, so it's like a blind taste test for research ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Have it.
And speaking of tests, they had 3 different conditions.
Okay.
So you had human-generated ideas, AI-generated ideas,
Right.
and then this really interesting hybrid
Oh.
where they had the AI generate ideas and then humans re-rank them.
Oh, I see.
So you can kind of tease apart, how good is the AI at just coming up with ideas versus how good is it at judging those ideas?
Right. Right. That's a clever design.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got our contenders lined up, right?
Yep.
But before we get to the judging, let's talk about the AI agent itself. How did this thing actually work?
Right.
Was it just like, superpowered autocomplete or something?
Not exactly. This AI agent, it used a technique called retrieval augmentation.
Retrieval augmentation. Okay, break that down for me.
So basically it means they gave the AI access to a whole bunch of existing research papers.
Oh, okay.
For inspiration,
So it's not just like making stuff up from thin air.
Right.
It's actually building on, existing knowledge.
Right, exactly.
But hopefully leading to something new.
Yeah, the goal is novel ideas, right?
Right, right.
And to push it even further, they did this thing called inference time scaling, which is a mouthful.
Inference time scaling. Okay.
It basically involved having the AI generate a ton of ideas, like way more than you'd need.
No way.
And then they used a second LLM trained on actual ICLR 2024 submissions
Whoa.
to rank them.
Wait, so they're using AI to judge AI?
Yeah.
Isn't that a little bit like the fox guarding the hen house?
It's a great question, and we are going to get into the limitations of LLMs as judges a bit later on.
Okay, all right.
But first, let's shift gears and talk about those human experts.
Right, right.
Because these weren't just, random people off the street.
Oh, I'd imagine they had to put together like a pretty elite team of NLP researchers for this, right?
They did. They recruited researchers with, impressive publication records, people who are actively contributing to the field.
Okay.
And they didn't just, phone it in either. These experts reported spending, on average, about 5.5 hours crafting their research idea.
5.5 hours?
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about dedication. So the AI had its work cut out for it. Okay, so they've got all these ideas, human and AI.
Yep.
How did they go about judging them?
They used a really rigorous blind review process.
Okay.
Kind of like, what you'd see at a top-tier academic conference.
Right.
And the reviewers, they were highly qualified. Most of them had reviewed for major AI conferences before.
Okay.
And they judged each idea on 5 key criteria: novelty, excitement, feasibility, expected effectiveness,
Okay.
and an overall score.
Okay, let's break that down a bit, because those first few, like novelty and excitement, that seems pretty subjective.
It is.
How do you even measure something like that?
Well, there is some inherent subjectivity there, right?
Right.
But to try and quantify it, they used a scale from 1 to 10 for each of those criteria.
Okay.
And they had multiple experts review each idea.
Okay, that makes sense. So more than one person weighing in to get a more well-rounded view.
Exactly. More robust, less biased.
Okay, so drum roll, please. What were the results? did the AI actually outshine the humans?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
When it came to novelty, the AI-generated ideas consistently scored higher
No way.
than the ones from human experts.
So you're saying the AI was, like, objectively better at coming up with fresh, unexpected ideas?
That's what the data suggests, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Color me impressed. But novelty isn't everything, right? What about feasibility? Can these AI-generated ideas actually be implemented?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's where things get a bit more nuanced.
Okay.
Because while the AI was great at novelty, it seemed to struggle a bit when it came to feasibility.
So it's like the AI is great at brainstorming, but maybe not so good at the practical details.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Okay.
The reviewers often pointed out that while the AI's ideas were really interesting, fascinating,
Right.
they sometimes required, like, unrealistic resources.
Right.
Or overlooked some important practical considerations.
It's like that classic trope of the absent-minded professor, right?
Yeah.
Brilliant ideas, but no clue how to make them work in the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
So it seems like there's a bit of a trade-off here.
Yeah.
The AI brings the wow factor, but humans are better at figuring out the how.
It's almost like they complement each other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not about AI replacing humans. It's about AI augmenting human capabilities. It's a partnership.
Right, not a competition.
Exactly.
So we're seeing this interesting tension between, like, the brilliance of the AI's ideas and then the practicality.
Right.
I'm really curious about those qualitative insights you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like, what were the reviewers actually saying about the strengths and weaknesses of the AI ideas compared to the human ones?
Oh, there were some really interesting comments.
Okay, like what?
So for one AI idea, a reviewer said, this is incredibly novel and it would significantly advance the field
Okay.
if it could be implemented.
Oh, there's the catch.
Right, exactly. And then they added, however, the resources required are simply beyond the capabilities of most research labs.
So, brilliant but impossible.
Pretty much, which, goes back to that trade-off we were talking about.
Right. Okay, what about the human-generated ideas? What do the reviewers have to say about those?
The reviewers really liked how feasible the human ideas were.
Okay.
Like, one said, this idea is well-grounded in the current state of the field and could be implemented with existing resources.
Okay, so practical, doable.
Exactly. But on the flip side, some reviewers felt like the human ideas played a bit too safe.
Interesting.
Like they were prioritizing feasibility over novelty.
It's almost like humans are afraid to, like, really go out on a limb, whereas the AI is swinging from the chandeliers.
That's a great way to put it.
So maybe the AI can help us, break free from our own limitations, our own biases.
Right.
Push us to consider those really novel directions that we might just dismiss as too out there.
Exactly. Help us see beyond what we think is possible.
Okay, this is all incredibly promising. But you mentioned earlier that there are limitations to using LLMs as judges. Can you elaborate on that a bit? It seems kind of ironic that the AI might be better at generating ideas than it is at evaluating them.
It is ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of the key findings of this study was that LLMs aren't quite there yet when it comes to, reliably evaluating research ideas.
Okay.
Remember that LLM ranker we talked about earlier?
The one trained on the ICLR submissions.
Yeah, the one that was supposed to be picking out the most promising AI-generated ideas.
Right.
Well, there was a big difference between the ideas the LLM liked and the ones that human experts preferred.
Oh, interesting. So the AI is a better brainstormer than a critic. Why do you think that is?
Evaluating research ideas is really complex.
Yeah, I imagine.
You need a deep understanding of the field, research methodology, intuition even.
Right.
And LLMs, they just haven't quite mastered that yet.
Okay, so that raises a really important question. If we can't fully trust AI to judge the quality of research ideas, how can we ensure that it's being used, safely and ethically in the research process?
That's a crucial point. And the study authors, they actually brought up concerns about potential idea homogenization.
Idea homogenization. Okay, what does that mean?
So if everybody starts using the same AI tools for brainstorming, we could end up with this narrowing of research perspectives.
Or I see. So instead of expanding our horizons, we're actually limiting diversity and creativity.
Exactly. We're creating an echo chamber of ideas where everything starts to sound the same.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's something we really need to be mindful of.
Right.
We don't want to stifle human creativity and ingenuity by becoming too reliant on AI.
Right. The goal is to augment our abilities, not replace them.
Precisely.
This has all been incredibly fascinating, but also like a little bit daunting. It's like we're on the edge of this new era of research, and we're not quite sure what's out there.
It is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so exciting.
True. Speaking of which, I'm really curious to hear about some of the specific ideas that this AI agent came up with. Can you walk us through a few examples?
Absolutely. The paper actually includes 8 example ideas, complete with reviewer comments.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's hear them.
Let's start with this idea called modular calibration for long-form answers.
Modular calibration. Okay. What's the problem it's trying to solve?
So it's tough to know how confident large language models are in their longer answers.
Right, like essays or code.
Exactly. And so this idea proposes a 4-step process called modular calibration.
Okay.
So first it prompts the model to break down the question and answer into smaller modules.
Okay.
Then it figures out how confident the model is for each module.
Okay.
And then in the final step, it merges all those individual confidence scores into one overall score for the entire answer.
Pretty clever. What did the reviewers think?
They were cautiously optimistic. One said, "It's possible that this approach will outperform the standard ways of doing things."
Okay. But there were some weaknesses too, right?
One reviewer pointed out that it didn't address the problem of partial correctness.
Meaning?
Well, long-form answers aren't always just right or wrong.
Right, there can be nuance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something, this idea needs to be developed further.
Okay, so that was an example of, a pretty good idea. What about one that wasn't as well received?
Okay, let's look at LLM-directed retrieval querying for improving factuality.
Factuality, that's a big one these days, especially with all the concerns about AI making stuff up.
Right, exactly. So this idea tries to improve the factuality of AI-generated answers using a multi-step retrieval process.
Yeah.
So instead of just searching for info once, it breaks the question down and searches for relevant stuff for each part.
Okay.
It's like doing a much more targeted, iterative search, kind of like a detective gathering clues.
I like that analogy. So
Yeah.
why didn't it score well?
Some reviewers felt like it was just too similar to existing methods.
Well-
Like they didn't see enough novelty.
Not groundbreaking enough.
Right. One reviewer said, "This will basically just become the same old thing just for each step."
Okay, so not a winner.
Not really. And another concern was that it could take a long time to process all those questions.
So efficiency matters.
It does. And remember those limitations we talked about with AI judging AI?
Yeah.
Well, a reviewer pointed out a similar issue here.
Okay, what was it?
They said, the rejection sampling is based on another LLM. What if that LLM also hallucinates?
Oh, wow. So it's like you've got one AI trying to fact check another AI that's also prone to making stuff up. That's a little concerning.
It is, and it shows that we need to be very careful when designing and evaluating these systems.
Right.
We can't just assume that because an AI is involved, it's automatically going to be accurate or reliable.
Okay, good point. So we've seen a good idea and a not so good idea. What's the takeaway from these examples?
I think they show us both the strengths and the weaknesses of using AI for coming up with research ideas.
Okay.
The AI can definitely generate some novel and potentially really impactful ideas, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Right. Especially when it comes to making sure those ideas are actually feasible.
Exactly. And addressing those potential pitfalls we talked about.
Right, right. And it seems like humans are still playing a really important role in refining and evaluating those AI-generated ideas.
Mhm.
It's not about replacing humans, it's about collaboration.
Exactly. It's AI and humans working together.
Each bringing their own strengths to the table.
I like that.
It's funny, like the AI has all these groundbreaking ideas.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to get, like, the limits of reality.
Right.
What do you think that tells us about how AI thinks compared to us humans, I mean?
I think it really highlights the differences between, human intelligence
Yeah.
and artificial intelligence.
Okay.
We humans, we've got years of experience navigating the real world. So we have this deep understanding of what's actually possible.
Right.
AI, on the other hand, it's not constrained by those limitations.
Okay.
It can explore all these possibilities, without worrying about physical resources or even existing paradigms.
So it can think more freely.
Exactly.
It can make connections that we might never even consider.
It's like having this brainstorming partner who's constantly pushing the boundaries, always asking, but what if?
I like that.
Yeah,
So the AI can help us break free from our own, like, preconceived notions
I think so.
of what's possible.
I think that's where the real potential lies.
Yeah.
It's not about replacing human researchers.
Right.
It's about augmenting our capabilities.
Expanding our horizons, making us think bigger.
Exactly.
Okay, but this raises some interesting questions, right?
Yeah.
Like, if an AI generates a research idea that's just not feasible today.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's a bad idea?
Right.
Or could it be like a seed for future innovation?
That is a fantastic question.
You know, something that inspires us to develop new technologies.
It's a question that a lot of researchers are thinking about right now.
Yeah.
That line between infeasible and not yet feasible can be pretty blurry.
Especially when you're dealing with cutting-edge stuff.
Exactly.
It makes me think about all those scientific discoveries throughout history
Right?
where people were like, that's crazy, that'll never work.
Yeah.
And then years later, it turns out they were right.
Exactly.
Maybe AI can help us spot those crazy ideas that are actually ahead of their time.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
The AI could be like a scout,
Oh,
venturing out into the unknown,
right.
bringing back these crazy ideas.
Which could lead to huge breakthroughs down the line.
Exactly.
Okay, so AI has this huge potential to change research, right?
Yeah.
But what about us, the researchers?
Right.
How is this going to change the way we work?
I think it'll change the skills we need,
Oh.
even the way we think about the research process itself.
So it's not just about understanding the science anymore.
Right.
It's about understanding how to work with AI.
We need to be able to collaborate with these AI agents,
Right.
evaluate their ideas, and figure out how to actually turn those ideas into research plans.
So it's like we're becoming research cyborgs.
Laughs.
Part human intuition, part artificial intelligence.
Big away, yeah.
And that requires a whole new way of thinking.
We can't see AI as a threat.
Right.
We need to see it as a powerful tool.
A tool that can help us
Yeah.
be more creative, expand our horizons.
Exactly.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
It has.
We've talked about the potential of AI to change research,
the challenges.
the things we need to consider.
It's been great.
What's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all this?
My takeaway is this. AI is not the future of research.
Okay.
It's part of the future of research.
I like that.
The best researchers will be the ones who can use AI effectively,
Right.
but who also retain those uniquely human qualities.
Creativity, critical thinking,
Exactly.
the passion for discovery.
That's what it's all about.
It's not AI versus humans
It's AI and humans.
working together to unlock the mysteries of the universe.
I love it.
And that is a future I'm so excited to be a part of.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating topic.
See you then.